The modern world is a relentless machine of noise and flashing lights designed to capture your attention and monetize your anxiety at every possible turn. Every second, a flickering red or green number dictates the perceived value of your life's work, while the digital landscape screams for your immediate reaction to every fluctuation in the global economy. Most people are trapped in a cycle of constant surveillance where they check their brokerage accounts before they even greet the morning sun, as if their internal peace were tied to a line on a graph that they cannot control. This obsession with the now is the primary enemy of the forever, and it is the primary reason why most investors fail before they even begin their journey toward true prosperity. To master a Stoic investment strategy is to understand that your primary asset is not the capital in your bank account, but the unshakable nature of your own mind. When you develop a wealth mindset, you realize that the market does not exist to provide you with a daily temperature check of your worth, but rather to serve as a tool for your long-term liberation. Achieving total financial control requires the courage to be still while the rest of the world is running in circles, and it demands a fundamental shift in how you perceive the passage of time and the nature of risk. The Stoic investor does not look at the stock market today, because the Stoic investor has already decided what they will do for the next 30 years, and nothing that happens in a single afternoon of trading can alter a conviction built on the rock of reason. We must confront the reality that checking the price of an asset does not change its value, but it does change your state of mind. If you are looking for safety in the flickering lights of a trading terminal, you are looking for peace in the eye of a hurricane. The true path to wealth is found in the silence of non-reaction. The system wants you to believe that more information leads to better decisions, but the Stoic knows that more noise only leads to more doubt. You do not need to know the price of a company every hour to know that it is a productive engine of society. You do not need to know the temperature of the ocean every minute to know that it will remain blue. Peace is the byproduct of certainty, and certainty is the byproduct of a philosophy that does not depend on the outside world. The sun was just beginning to touch the edges of the skyscrapers in the city center when Thomas sat down in his office, surrounded by the silence of a world that hadn't yet woken up to the chaos of the day. 10 years ago, Thomas was a different man who spent his hours glued to 4 different monitors, watching every candle flicker on the chart, as if he could manifest a profit through the sheer intensity of his gaze. He remembered the feeling of his heart hammering against his ribs during periods of extreme market volatility, when a single news headline could wipe out months of discipline saving in a matter of minutes. He lived in a state of perpetual emergency, where his mood was entirely dictated by the Federal Reserve's latest pronouncements or the erratic movements of tech stocks in the pre-market sessions. This lack of emotional discipline was not just costing him money, but it was eroding his health and his relationships, as he became a ghost in his own home, always present in body, but mentally lost in the recursive loops of price action and speculation. He was obsessed with capital preservation, but in his frantic attempt to protect his money, he was losing his soul and his time, which are the only 2 things a human being can never truly get back. He used to wake up in the middle of the night just to check the opening of the Asian markets, feeling a surge of cortisol if the numbers were red, and a hollow sense of relief if they were green. This was not living, it was a slow suicide by 1,000 digital cuts. One afternoon, when the market dropped 5% in an hour, he felt a physical wave of nausea wash over him, and he realized that he had become a slave to a system that did not know his name and did not care about his survival. He looked at the flickering numbers and realized that he was treating the market like a god that needed to be appeased through constant sacrifice and attention, when in reality it was merely a collection of human emotions and algorithmic patterns. He reached out and pressed the power button on his monitors, watching the glowing screens fade to black. And in that sudden darkness, he finally found a moment of clarity that would change the trajectory of his life forever. He walked out into the cool air of the evening and noticed for the first time in years the way the wind moved through the trees and the way the shadows lengthened on the pavement, realizing that the world continued to turn regardless of the S&P 500's closing price. He saw people rushing home with their heads down, scrolling through their phones, likely checking the same red numbers that had just caused him so much pain. He felt a profound sense of pity for the version of himself that had existed only an hour ago. He understood then that the market is a mirror of human fear and greed, but he no longer had to see his own reflection in it. The anxiety that had gripped him for a decade began to dissolve, not because the market had recovered, but because he had recovered his sense of self. You have likely felt this same anxiety when looking at your own bank account and wondering if you are doing enough, or if the next crash will be the one that finally takes everything you have worked for. You have felt the phantom vibration of a phone notification alerting you to a dip in a sector you barely understand. This is the narrative of conflict that defines the modern age, a war for your inner peace. We are told that we must be informed, but we are never told that being informed often means being poisoned by the worries of millions of other people. Thomas decided that he would no longer participate in the collective panic. He chose a life of silence over a life of screens. To understand why a Stoic does not check the market, we must look back to the teachings of Seneca, who reminded us that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and that the things we fear the most are often the things that have the least power over our actual character. The core of Stoic principles is the dichotomy of control, which is the ability to distinguish between what is up to us and what is not. When applied to portfolio management, this means recognizing that the price of a stock is an external event that belongs to the world, while the decision to buy and hold a quality asset is an internal choice that belongs to you. Imagine an archer who spends years perfecting his stance and his grip, and the way he draws the bowstring back to his ear. The archer can control his training and his focus, and the moment he chooses to release the arrow. But once that arrow leaves the bow, it is no longer within his power. A sudden gust of wind or a bird flying across the path can divert the arrow, and the archer who ties his happiness only to hitting the bulls will always be a victim of the wind. A Stoic archer finds his satisfaction in the excellence of his shot regardless of the result, because he knows he did everything within his control to succeed. In the world of long-term investing, the market is the wind, and your investment philosophy is your training. If you have done the work to select sound assets based on logic and value, then checking the price every day is like trying to chase the arrow through the air to steer it with your hands. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind and not outside events, and realizing this is where you find your true strength. The stock market is a collective representation of millions of arrows flying in different directions, pushed by the winds of politics, war, and emotion. Why would you spend your life staring at the wind when you could be perfecting your aim? If you focus on your internal control, write indifferent in the comments. By labeling the daily noise of the market as an indifferent thing, you strip it of its power to cause you pain or false excitement. This allows you to treat your investments as a garden that you plant once and water occasionally, rather than a fire that you must constantly fan to keep alive. The Stoic investor treats his portfolio like a mountain that is being shaped by the slow erosion of time, rather than a sandcastle that must be rebuilt every time the tide comes in. The mountain does not care if it is raining today. It does not care if the clouds block the sun for a week. It simply exists. It endures. It grows through geological time. This is the essence of the Stoic approach to wealth. It is the realization that true value is built in the shadows away from the eyes of the crowd. Epictetus taught us that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. When you apply this to your financial life, you see that the constant checking of prices is actually a manifestation of a want for certainty that the world cannot provide. The Stoic provides his own certainty through his own character and his own refusal to be moved by the external. Consider the metaphor of the dog tied to a moving cart. The cart represents the economy, and the dog represents your investment. The dog can either walk along with the cart or struggle against the rope, but the cart is going to its destination regardless. The Stoic chooses to walk in harmony with the natural movement of the world. By checking the market, you are essentially pulling at the rope trying to make the cart go faster or stop. You are creating your own suffering because you refuse to accept the reality of the cart's path. True wealth is the ability to let go of the rope. It is the understanding that once you have set your strategy, the most productive thing you can do is absolutely nothing. This is the hardest work of all because our egos demand that we interfere to prove our worth. But the Stoic knows that interference is the father of error. To move from theory to reality, you must build a framework that protects you from your own biology, because the human brain is wired to seek patterns and respond to threats, which makes us naturally poor at passive wealth accumulation. The first step in this framework is the implementation of a system that automates your discipline, so that you do not have to rely on your willpower when the world is in a panic. You must learn how to stop impulse spending by recognizing that every dollar you spend on a fleeting desire is a brick taken away from the foundation of your future freedom. True wealth is built through the accumulation of unspent capital, and the Stoic approach to budgeting is centered on the idea of enough rather than the pursuit of more. You should aim for building wealth quietly without the need for external validation or the display of luxury items that only serve to signal a status you have not yet truly earned. This means creating an investment schedule where your capital is deployed into the market at regular intervals regardless of the current price, which removes the temptation to time the market. When you automate your contributions, you are making a pact with your future self that your current emotions are not allowed to interfere with your long-term goals. You should also conduct a pre-mortem on your portfolio by imagining the worst-case scenario where the market drops 50% and stays there for a decade. If that thought causes you to lose sleep, then you have not yet aligned your investments with your actual risk tolerance, and you are still too attached to the external result. A Stoic investor views a market crash not as a tragedy, but as a natural season of the economic cycle, much like winter follows autumn. During these times, you do not check your balance to see how much you have lost, but you check your character to see how much you have grown in resilience. You must also limit your exposure to financial media, which is designed to keep you in a state of high arousal and constant activity, because the industry profits from your trades while you profit from your patience. By checking your accounts only once a quarter or once a year, you give yourself the gift of perspective, and you allow the power of compounding to work its silent magic without the interference of your ego. The framework of the Stoic investor is built on the concept of the margin of safety. This is not just a financial calculation, but a psychological one. You must have a margin of safety in your mind. This means having enough cash on hand so that the market's movements do not dictate your ability to eat or pay your rent. When your survival is decoupled from your investment performance, you gain the superpower of indifference. You can watch the world burn on the news and then go for a walk in the woods because you know that your plan is robust and your needs are met. This framework also requires you to redefine what a good day looks like. For most, a good day is when the green numbers are large. For the Stoic investor, a good day is a day when you did not check the numbers at all. A good day is a day when you focused on your work, on your family, and on your own personal growth. Wealth is the byproduct of a well-lived life, not the primary goal. If you spend your life staring at a ticker, you are trading the only thing you truly own, which is your time, for the hope of owning more things. The Stoic chooses to own himself first. This practical management of the self is the highest form of financial wisdom. It is the ability to walk past the flashing screens of the city and feel absolutely nothing. No desire, no fear, no urgency. Just the calm realization that your wealth is growing in the dark like a seed beneath the soil, and that it does not need your anxiety to grow. It only needs your absence of interference. You must learn to be the observer of your impulses rather than the victim of them. When you feel the itch to check the market, stop and ask yourself what you hope to find. Will a higher number make you a better person? Will a lower number change your philosophy? If the answer is no, then the act of checking is a waste of your soul. We build our frameworks not because we are strong, but because we know we are weak. We know that in the heat of a market crash, the ancient part of our brain will scream for us to run. We build the walls of our strategy high enough and strong enough to keep that ancient brain contained. We choose assets that do not require our constant supervision because they represent real value in the real world. We invest in human progress, not in chart patterns. We look at the broad arc of history, and we see that despite every war and every plague and every crisis, the world has continued to move toward greater complexity and greater abundance. We place our bet on that broad arc, and then we close the tab. This is how you win. You win by refusing to play the game of minutes and seconds and choosing instead to play the game of decades and centuries. The system in which we live is designed to keep you in a state of perpetual debt and psychological exhaustion, because a man who is afraid for his future is a man who is easy to control. They want you to believe that you need to be an expert and that you need to be constantly trading and that you need to follow every trend to survive. But this is a lie told by those who profit from the movement of your money. Stoicism is the ultimate rebellion against this consumerist trap, because it teaches you that you already have everything you need within yourself to be content and free. The pursuit of money should never be about the accumulation of objects, but about the purchase of your own time so that you can live according to your own values rather than the demands of a boss or a bank. The system wants you poor and addicted to the dopamine hit of a rising stock price, but Stoicism makes you free by showing you that your value is independent of your net worth. The true Stoic investor can walk through a city of golden palaces and feel no envy, and can watch a market collapse and feel no fear because his home is built in the fortress of his own mind. Realize that every time you resist the urge to check the market, you are winning a battle against your own lower nature, and you are reclaiming a piece of your life from the void of digital noise. True freedom is not having the ability to buy anything you want, but having the discipline to want nothing that is outside of your control. Master your desires and you will master your destiny. The silence you cultivate today will become the foundation of your legacy tomorrow. While others are losing their sleep over interest rates and quarterly reports, you will be sleeping soundly knowing that the world's chaos cannot touch the core of your being. You are the architect of your own tranquility. You are the master of your own wealth. The journey toward a life of stoic abundance is long, and it is quiet, and it is often lonely because most people cannot fathom a life without constant stimulation. But the reward is a level of freedom that no amount of money can buy. It is the freedom to be truly present in the only moment that exists, which is now. Do not let the ghosts of the future or the shadows of the market steal this moment from you. Stand firm in your reason and let the world do as it will. You have already won. The silence of the Stoic investor is not an absence of action, but a presence of self. It is the ultimate statement of sovereignty in a world of noise. We conclude this reflection with a reminder that your time is your only non-renewable resource. Every minute spent staring at a screen is a minute stolen from your purpose. Reclaim your time. Reclaim your mind. Reclaim your life. The market will be there tomorrow and the day after that, and for 100 years after you are gone. Do not give it your life while you are still here to live it. The path of the silent mentor is the path of true authority and true peace. The numbers on the screen are but shadows on the wall of a cave. Step out into the sunlight and see the world as it really is. A place of endless opportunity and profound simplicity. Your bank account is a tool to help you experience this world, not a chain to bind you to a desk. Treat it as such, and you will find a wealth that transcends the currency of men. Go now and walk in silence, knowing that you are free. Subscribe to Money and Stoicism to master your finances and your mind. Like this video if you seek true freedom.